Hello, good morning. Welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and this Wednesday we have our Kristen's Classroom segment, as always, with meteorologist Kristen Curry. Kristen, thanks for joining us. How are you doing this morning?
Pretty good. It was a busy morning tracking storms through the area. Nothing too severe once we had that hailstorm pass through Georgetown last night, but got some good, healthy rain.
Yeah, I think it was about like 7 in the afternoon when I started hearing the little raindrops out my window. Opened all the windows up and it smelled so good.
Yeah, you're talking about last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice to see that rain come in. We could do without the hail, as always, but it was nice to get some rain. Picked up over 1.5 inches in the Austin area. Wettest day of April so far.
Yeah.
And we got another round tonight. So.
Well, April showers are here right before April wraps up, but we have a fun topic and it's lightning truths and tales.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today?
I figured, we did a tornadoes, truths, and tales a while back, and I thought, let's talk about lightning because I do think it is one of the most underrated threats when it comes to severe weather. Every single thunderstorm is going to have lightning. That's what makes it a thunderstorm. You aren't going to get warnings like a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning for lightning. There is no defined lightning warning, as every thunderstorm is going to have them, right? So it's one of those things where because there's not going to get that alert immediately everywhere on every app when it comes to lightning, I wanted to talk about what we know and what maybe we think we know about lightning that's not quite true.
And I'm sure you already have a list of things that are not quite true and things that are true from your classroom visits and all the questions that you get every time.
For sure. And I'll tell you, Esme, it's not even just the kids, it's the grown-ups too that I think are oftentimes surprised at some of the things that we thought we were taught about lightning before, and now we're thinking, oh no, that's not right. So that's our discussion today.
And when we think that we know everything about lightning and we don't, what can that lead to?
Unfortunately, it could lead to injury or worse, putting yourself in danger, putting your family in danger. Because this is so widespread of an issue when we do see thunderstorms come in, it's not even just the cloud to cloud lightning that we watch for when it comes to storm. That's a sign of storm intensity, but also the cloud to ground that could hurt us. Down here at the surface, there's all sorts of different things that we need to watch out for when it comes to the threat of lightning.
Okay, well, let's get to it.
Yep.
What do you have
Let's dive in. Yeah, and today it's Kristen's classroom talk about lightning. The first tale, you are safe hiding under a tree. This is, I think, a lot of people's gut reaction is if there's a thunderstorm, you see lightning, you want to hide underneath whatever you can find. And a lot of the times, if we're outside and away from a structure, that is a tree. But unfortunately, that is the second leading cause of death. And it's not necessarily because you're more prone to being, struck by lightning underneath the tree. It's the tree that is more prone to being struck by lightning, and the electricity within that lightning bolt can go down the trunk of that tree through the roots. And if you're standing on an exposed root or really a root that's getting close to you, you can get struck by lightning that way. It's not kind of the cartoon theory of like the bolts come out of the cloud and hit you on the head. It's unfortunately the tree being hit, electricity coming down through the tree, through the roots, and hitting you underneath it.
Wow, so it can still reach you.
It can still reach you, absolutely. Another tale, you are 100% safe in a home. Now, this is tough because I do tell kids, the safest place to be is in a home, but there are some precautions we have to take because you can get electrocuted through appliances, right? Now, we're kind of steering away from the corded phones that we used to have, right? At Grandma and Grandpa's house or Mom and Dad's house. But anything that's plugged in, we don't want to be touching any sort of exposed wire
TVs
or a connection, because of some of the those breaker boxes or metal boxes outside of your home. So just stay away from that. I think more often than not, you are going to be safe in your home, but it's just not 100%. I can't guarantee it, especially if you do have those exposed pipes on the outside of your home. Something else is this one, and I hear this all the time, like I mentioned, especially with grown-ups. Metal attracts lightning. That is not true. Metal does not attract lightning. Lightning is attracted to height. It's looking for whatever is the tallest thing outside, whether that's a tree, an electric pole, telephone pole, an antenna on top of a building, on a house, the roof of a house. It's I say, and I tell the kids, lightning is lazy. It's looking for the tallest thing so it doesn't have to go as far from the cloud down to the ground. So more often than not, that is a tree or that is a pole. When it comes to metal, metal is a good conductor of electricity. So I use the example of if you're out on a highway, tree gets struck by lightning, lightning takes the tree down and that tree falls on a guardrail. That metal sheet is going to be able to quickly conduct that electricity. And if you are on the edge of that guardrail or standing next to it, you could get struck by lightning. It's the same thing with a chain link fence. If a chain link fence gets struck by lightning, that fence can act as a good conductor. And if you're leaned up against that fence and I oftentimes think of like a batting cage or a baseball, at the back of a home plate. If you're leaned up against that or close to that, you could get struck by lightning.
And what about our vehicles? They're made of metal.
Yep. We'll talk about that. So going on to the next graphic here. Laying flat on the ground if there is no shelter. Have you heard this one before?
I have, and I never believed it.
Yeah, exactly. Good. I'm so glad. Laying flat on the ground, people think, again, if I'm less tall, then I will be safe. Now, it kind of, and I know that's difficult because, yes, in theory, that's true. However, I also just told you that ground current, and that means, where the electricity can actually spread out on the ground if it's coming out of a tree through the roots and such, you have a higher risk of ground current with that if you're spreading your body out.
When you're laying on the floor.
100%. And in fact, if a lightning bolt comes straight down from the sky and it hits a point in the ground, it can travel up to 60 feet. That electricity can travel up to 60 feet from that point. So you don't even really have to be close to that bolt. Now, 60 feet is kind of the upper limits there, but even 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet from where a lightning bolt comes down and strikes the ground, you could get struck by ground current. So you want to minimize the amount of you touching the ground if you are stuck outside. You asked me about cars. The theory is rubber tires protect you. Rubber only insulates low voltage. The metal cage does protect you because if your car gets struck by lightning, that metal cage of your vehicle is going to redirect that electric current down to the ground and not bring it inside. So I would rather you in a car than outside standing in a baseball field if there is a thunderstorm. And obviously every thunderstorm has lightning, as we talked about, but I would rather you inside because what I'm worried about is, like metal, water. Water can conduct electricity. So if you are in your car and you take, lightning comes down, there's still lightning outside, and you take your foot, you step outside that car, and there's another lightning bolt, and you're standing in a puddle, water can transfer that electricity. So it's not something that I encourage you to do. However, if you have no other means to get inside, being in a car would be safer, not because of the tires. The tires are only going to insulate low voltage, and lightning obviously has very, very high voltage.
Yeah, very high.
It's not the rubber tires, it's the metal frame around your vehicle that redirects that electrical current away from you.
Wow. Well, we'll be right back after this break to talk more about truths and tales with lightning. We'll be right back. And we're back here with Kristen's classroom, speaking with our meteorologist, Kristen Curry, about the truths and tales that come with lightning. With me to do this is, of course, Kristen Curry. Kristen, we were just talking about rubber tires. Something I've heard is rubber shoes protect you.
It would be the same kind of thing. Rubber on the bottom of your shoes is going to insulate you from low voltage, but not the high voltage that lightning carries. I mean, you think about lightning is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Like, this is scalding. And that's what I tell the kids when I go, to these schools, is sometimes they'll say, can you survive a lightning strike? And I will tell them, yes, there is potential that you survive it, but it's not going to feel good. It's basically like putting your insides through a toaster, right? No. You're getting that electric charge all the way through your veins and in your body and your organs. Sometimes it can stop your heart, just like when you're trying to get your heart started again, they'll use electrical shock. Yeah. They'll use the AED pads. Similar thing, but we're going the opposite direction that we don't want to go, right? We're stopping your heart or jumping your heart when we don't need to.
A little too much voltage.
Right? Little too much, yeah. And there is a very low survival rate when it comes to lightning victims. And I will transition into this next point because I think this is one of the most important parts. There is this thinking that you can't touch somebody who gets struck by lightning, or else you will get struck by, or you'll get some of that electricity. And I will tell you, the human body does not store electricity. When somebody gets struck by lightning, it's in and it's gone, right? But it's in that second that their insides are getting fried, unfortunately.
And so quickly, too.
So fast. If you are with somebody who gets struck by lightning, the first thing you need to do is be aware of your surroundings, right? I just told you it's the same thing with getting out of the car in a puddle. You want to make sure that person's not in wet, on a wet ground or in a pool. That's a big thing too. But if it is safe where you're not seeing any sort of metal or water, you can touch them. You can administer first aid. And sometimes in the case of being struck by lightning, the seconds matter. So if you know how to do first aid, administer first aid, immediately call 911. You want to get that person to a hospital as quickly as possible. But that is a big thing, is a lot of people think, oh, I can't touch them. I have to stay away. I have to wait. Whereas the human body's not going to hold on to that electricity. If you touch them and they're not wet, in a puddle, or against any sort of metal railing, metal pole, that kind of thing, you can safely do so.
That's good to know. Now that we're talking about this, I remember when I was younger and we had a pool in our house, my mom always said, get out of the pool when the lightning was striking or when it started to rain and we heard thunder. So now I'm realizing she was right. And this whole time I would get upset that she would kick me out of the pool. But she was right.
And you know what it is? A lot of the times when we see lightning victims, when it comes to the pool, it's because those pipes in the pool come out above ground. Yeah. And so if they get struck, if that metal pipe gets struck by lightning,
the whole pool,
it'll go down through the pool and into the water, and the water obviously is a good conductor. You see, unfortunately, sometimes if there's any sort of malfunctioning in the wire of pool lights, it's the same kind of thing. So I just wanted to kind of drive home the point here. I've got this really interesting information that the weather company put together for us that basically shows you where people have lost their lives between 2006 and 2003 from lightning. And you're noticing a lot of these are outside, right? Under a tree. 92 people there between 2006 2023 there. So close to 20 years, about 17 years, we've had people close to 100 die because they were hiding under a tree. The other big one to point out, on the water. Right? We know boating, rafting.
69
Yeah,
on the water.
A lot of people here in Central Texas go out and hit those lakes in the summertime. And unfortunately, you can lose your life with lightning in a thunderstorm. On the roof, a lot of that has to do with construction workers, unfortunately, home builders. But even out in the field, we have a big agriculture industry here in Central Texas. And so this is something you definitely want to be mindful of.
On a golf course?
Yeah. I mean, some people will risk it. And unfortunately, Mother Nature will always win. That is a very true statement. And more often than not, she is undefeated in those scenarios. So we don't want to test her. But like I mentioned, with it, whether it be construction, in a driveway, parking lot, in a park.
Under a tree, 92 under a tree.
Yeah, it's crazy how many people. But, I would say 95% of these are outside. There are a small number there. You can see
inside a home.
Inside a home too, and that kind of goes back to some of the appliances that we were talking about. But it's unfortunate, and we see this almost every year. In fact, I would say it is every year. We see people lose their life with lightning here in Texas.
Kristen, in your article, you wrote people need to stay weather aware. What do you mean by this, especially now that we're seeing all this severe weather coming up and meteorologists are talking about it? We're seeing rain, we're seeing thunder, we're seeing hail. What does that mean, being weather aware?
It's basically just staying up to date with the forecast, right? And we know, especially in the springtime, things can change very quickly. Last night was a prime example. We were thinking an isolated storm, maybe here and there, whole country, when all of a sudden all the ingredients were right. Storm developed right on top of Austin, blew up into a massive hailstorm in Georgetown so quickly. So sometimes Mother Nature is not going to give you that generous lead time to get yourself to a place of safety. So you want to make sure you've got some sort of app, resource, local intel that's going to tell you when these storms are coming or if they're there. My advice to you would be the Cake Sand Weather app, because with the Cake Sand Weather app, there is a setting to where you can be notified. I think it's within 10 miles. It will notify you if there is lightning nearby, and that would be your cue to get inside and get everybody off the trail, out of the pool, and that kind of thing.
And that's with everything. Yesterday, I had my weather app on, and I got a notification that said in 50 minutes it will start raining, and I was there waiting, and it was right on the dot 50 minutes later.
Right, and I can tell you too, with the Cake Sand Weather app, if those for whatever reason become frustrating to you, if you're inside at 10 o'clock at night, you can turn those off for the night. You don't have to keep the precipitation alert, the lightning alert on if you know you're going to be outside. I encourage you, in fact, to go in there in the Cake Sand Weather app and tinker around with those notifications to see what works best for you, especially with an overnight event like what we had last night. I had told on Facebook some of the viewers there, all you really need if you know you're going to be inside is a severe thunderstorm warning on, tornado warning on.
Yeah.
Those are going to be two, and really flash flood warning as well. I would add that third one. But it's only if you're going to be outside at a baseball game, or soccer practice, where it's more important to put that lightning alert and that precipitation alert on.
Or if you're even worried and you don't have those alerts on, just get in the app and see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And I can tell you, during the springtime, more often than not, there's going to be some sort of storm chance around.
Yeah,
it's not until really June do our storm chances fall off. We get into the long stretches of hot, dry, and sunny here in central Texas. But April and May are the 2 months that gives the most trouble when it comes to thunderstorms and just like the volatileness of our atmosphere and how quickly these things can develop.
Yeah, and we see it every day, how quickly it's developing. We have your article right now on our website. It's titled Lightning Truths versus Tales. It's on our homepage, kxen.com. What do you have in this article that we maybe didn't get to talk about?
One of the things was, I think a lot of people underestimate how far lightning can strike from the parent storm. So at the very bottom there, we call them bolts from the blue, because lightning can actually strike 10 miles from the parent thunderstorm. So you really don't even have to be underneath it or even that close to a thunderstorm to see bolts from the blue. If you ever sometimes watch our weather coverage and we've got thunderstorms and you see a little random lightning bolt on the map that doesn't seem to be with the rest of them, that typically means a bolt from the blue, or that lightning has struck outside that parent storm from a few miles away. And those can be scary too, because you're looking up and, like it says, bolt from a blue sky. You don't even realize. But if there's thunderstorm activity really anywhere in the region, my advice would be to get inside.
Yeah, of course. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
I either heard this from a movie or from a relative about people who survive lightning strikes end up with a white streak in their hair. Is that true?
I don't think so. I have not heard that. Like a frozen, princess.
Tangled.
I have not heard that. More often than not, it's lightning strikes lead to some sort of nervous system disability. So you could become paralyzed. You could have some, nerve ending issues. Those are the biggest consequences, or what's what I'm looking for, the biggest result, for lack of a better word, of what happens when you get struck by lightning. But it's one of those things that I wouldn't test it, right? I wouldn't want to find out if it gives you that little lucky streak of white. If you do survive a lightning strike, yes, you are lucky. Opposite side of that would be you are very unlucky if you get struck by lightning, because it's not like it happens a lot, right? And the other thing I might add is, lightning can strike the same place more than once. That is also a myth that is not on here, but lightning can strike the same place more than once. We see all the time on some of the tallest buildings around. There was some report that the Eiffel Tower has been struck hundreds of times because it is so tall and it's made of metal, and oftentimes,
lights,
especially with a house or a tall building, they have these grounding wires to where it would do the same thing similar to a vehicle, where it would ground the lightning and not strike anything, up top with people on a rooftop or whatnot.
Yeah. For the rest of today, what can we expect in the weather forecast?
Yeah, so let me get you to your 7-day forecast here, because we do anticipate another chance of some storms late this afternoon, evening. Because our atmosphere is so worked up worked over this morning. It's probably going to take a little while for those storms to get going, but we do have a chance of seeing more storms later this afternoon. I would say this evening, probably. This evening, a little bit more likely. And then depending on how today's timing shakes out, more storms tomorrow, kind of like what we've seen over the last 24 hours. If those storms do really well, then it delays the next round. If we only see a couple storms pop out this evening, then I think tomorrow is going to be a much more active day because the atmosphere would have had plenty of time to get itself together. Mm-hmm. So we'll watch how today's round plays out because it will influence the round we see Thursday and Friday. This weekend, we do start to dry out. We've got highs back to the 90s, Sunday and Monday with mixed sun clouds, and then the weather stays active as we finish up the month of April and get into May.
Well, nice to see that our weekend is going to be pretty clear.
Yes, yeah, I think we timed it quite right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Kristen. We're excited to hear what topic we will cover next Wednesday. These are always fun to have you here with us.
Yeah, hopefully we accidentally learned a little something. That's what I tell the kids. I'm like, give me a thumbs up if you accidentally learned a little something, and then my job has been done.
Yes, of course. Well, thanks for joining us, Kristen.
Of course.